How did Mid-South turn into UWF? Eventually,
We had to have that because when we started going nationwide, we saw that what Vince was doing, we had to too, and Mid-South had the feel to the advertisers of being regional, so we had to do something that was national, and we got going pretty good. Let me tell you, Mid-South didn't get beat. Every time, Vince will tell you, every time he came here, we kicked his ass. We embarrassed him. What beat us was the oil thing. When the oil crunch hit and wiped out the oil states, that's what beat us. It had nothing to do with our ability to promote. We could beat anybody. We had the highest rated show everywhere it was ever played against anybody.
how did you first syndicate UWF?
Strictly, we had a syndicator that Jim came on in Dallas, and again, that guy was doing a good job, and the oil crunch wiped him out and wiped the guy that was his backer out. This guy owned hotels and everything, and when they all went broke, he went broke too. But we were well on the road to, and it was all the old-fashioned way. We did the bartering and the syndication, and most of our commercials were the per inquiry type of commercial, same way that Ted Turner built his station. And we had good results, and I'm telling you, we were just doing fine, and then all of a sudden when that thing hit, the realization of that oil thing, when the bottom dropped out of oil, it just like a spigot turned it off, and I started losing $50,000 every week, and that wasn't monopoly money, that's out of my pocket. And that's a hell of a deal, but we maintained our contracts with our talent, we paid our talent, we kept on going, but I finally got to the point where I realized I had to sell it.
Right, this is back in 86.
86, 87.
Yeah. Before UWF folded or went out of business, you sold it to Crockett. Did you have a lot of conversations with Vince before?
You mean about that? Well, yeah. I guess you've looped into that deal. That was kind of a coup. I knew that my ass was going out of business because I couldn't survive the oil crisis, and this. I mean, when all entertainment quit coming to the oil states, which was Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma, and of course Arkansas, Mississippi. Country western shows canceled, rock and roll canceled because I mean it was dead. There was no money. You had banks going broke. Braniff Airlines went broke, and so and foreclosures of land, and so I called Vince and went back east to visit with him and said, well, I've got enough damage, which was true, to do a pretty darn good federal antitrust suit.
Right.
And I had a law firm in New Orleans that wanted to try it, and they would have tried it there, which was my grounds. And if you've ever, New Orleans is the only state that's under the Napoleonic Code, so you have a lot of advantages politically. And I said, so if you buy me out, I won't file it. And he said, if you want to work together with me, sell yours and come to work with me. So I didn't like that deal, but I can't blame him for where he was. He just called it. He said, go to court, which we could have done. We could, and we probably could have won. But that'd have been a 2 to 3 year deal, and I'm losing $50,000 a week at the time. So then Jim Ross called Crockett and said, Vince is about to buy Bill Watts. You're number 2. We were number 3 in size. He said, if he buys Bill Watts, you're finished. But why don't you buy him? And that's how we got Crockett to the table. And Crockett bought. And Crockett had the means, with what we gave him, to have really done it. I just didn't realize Jimmy Crockett didn't have the real growth and ability to run a big company. He had Dusty bankrupting him. And Dusty, with all his talent, doesn't know how to make something have a bottom line. There's no territory he's ever run that hadn't had fiscal problems, because Dusty doesn't know anything about bottom line. All he knows is spend and do. And you have to have a balance. You have to be able to have a bottom line. That's what I was always very good at. My territory probably made more net than any territory in the United States.
Were you offered a position in Crockett, or you just wanted out of the business?
No, as a consultant, and I wouldn't have fit there with Crockett's ego and Dusty's ego and everything, and I wanted out.
Do you think when NWA took all your talent that they missed a boat with doing an interpromotional feud as far
as... Yes, that's what the whole basis was. One thing I learned about the Georgia War was Gunkel was selling out and we were selling out in Atlanta, and it created a bigger awareness of wrestling. And when DiBiase called me about the NWO thing at WCW, and I said, yes, yeah, create your own competition,
right,
and it'll stimulate your business. And that's what NWO did. Then Vince copied it
right,
at WWF. So yeah, that's what Crockett was supposed to do. But Dusty's ego couldn't handle it. You know, it just was. I mean, how stupid can you be that you go buy a jet that carries 5 passengers in the wrestling business? That doesn't even make sense. If you got two airplanes, you don't need a 5-passenger airplane in the wrestling business. And I owned a Phillips 66 fixed base. I could have got Crockett's special deals on aviation fuel.
Right.
And he just drew into himself because he couldn't cope.
Do you think it was basically a fear of if they started an interpromotional feud that their guys had to look stronger than UWF guys?
Oh, I don't know what their problem was. Hell, he owned them both.
Right.
If you own them both, what do you care?
Right.
It's supposed to be about the bottom line, isn't it? So, I mean, and you sure control the outcome, don't you?
Exactly.
And so if there's somebody over here that are looking stronger, you can just have somebody buy them out, and all of a sudden they're over here, can't you?
Right.
Isn't that what the NWO does?
Right.
So, I mean, it's a work. But they shot with it as far as egos, and Crockett went broke.